one of the pieces that I think is helpful is to know that psychedelics, it's not a linear path towards your intentions. It's a very dynamic process that has its ups and downs and its ins and outs for sure. And if you can keep an open mind about how the individual's process looks, what timeline it falls on, whether it's days, weeks, or months, that it's not always this linear forward progression, then that will allow you to have a sense of like flexibility and adaptability because your loved one's needs are going to change over time. One of my really, really great, childhood friends, we just chatted the other week. He said, the mantra that I live my life is never straight, always forward, which means that you may be forwardly progressing in life, but it might not be a direct line from point A to point B. So having that level of flexibility to invite in that spontaneity of need in the moment, super, super amazing, super, super helpful. And then you can get to a place where you can kind of co-create your support and care along with your loved one. I think this then leads into having clear and thoughtful communication. I think a lot of the language and communication that's rooted in supportive care for somebody going through a psychedelic experience usually falls in the realm of like reflection, validating, normalizing, trying our best to speak without bias, trying our best to speak as neutral as possible. And then also like asking questions, I think can be helpful. But it's really key to be mindful of how you ask questions. Remember, psychedelic experiences can put folks in vulnerable states of being, highly suggestible states, as Jason Silva mentions. And so just being really thoughtful of how you ask questions can be such a great, great strategy for you to hold because it can be easy for your psychedelic loved one to either misinterpret or read into your question, or maybe your question is loaded with a whole bunch of hidden expectations. So one of the things that I caution loved ones about is to not ask how it went after the psychedelic experience. So somebody has a psychedelic experience, you're like, how did it go? Was it everything that you wanted it to be? And although asking how it went can sound very innocent, it requires the loved one to make a judgment or make a formulation or determination on how it actually went, which means that they're going to have to formulate some words around it and summarize and describe it to you in a way that aligns with your expectation, their expectation, or both. And what I suggest here instead is to just let your loved one tell you. Like if they want to tell you about the experience or components about it, they likely will go ahead and volunteer to do so. I've had folks ask me, I shared with my siblings at one point, I was like, hey, I'm going to be journeying around my birthday. And then afterwards, my sister was like, okay, well, how did it go? And it just put so much pressure on me. She didn't mean to do it. She cared a lot about what was going on in my life. But it put on so much pressure for me to be like, oh my God, how did it go? Maybe what I'm saying or what I'm feeling is not aligned to what they were expecting. And so just an example of being really thoughtful about how you communicate. And then this goes back to those, boundaries and, bandwidth and availability. It's also helpful to have, clear and thoughtful communication around what you're available for or what you're not available for. So this would come in the form of maybe your loved one asking for something, some support, a conversation. Maybe they're texting with you every day pretty actively. And then you feeling like, oh my goodness, I actually don't have the availability for this, but I already committed to being their support. And so I'm kind of stuck in this place of feeling obligated to support, but maybe not having the energy to do so. And that type of friction can also bleed into the care that you have for your loved one. And so as these things come up, it's so, so important in a very loving way to say, like, hey, I want to support you in this way, but I'm having a lot of challenge and difficulty texting you actively, throughout the day. Can we maybe find some time in the evenings or once a week for you to check in? What feels right for you there, as an example of having this clear and thoughtful communication? I also think that firm language is really helpful. So there's this balance of needing to be really clear in how you communicate while holding this level of neutrality, but sometimes trying to hold that level of neutrality, meaning you're not bringing your own judgment or bias into the equation. Sometimes that can make you come off very vague. For example, listen to the difference between these two questions. I might ask, is there anything I can do to support you right now? Okay, seems like a pretty well-intentioned question, but I propose that a stronger way of saying that a little bit more firmly and a little bit more clearly is, what do you need right now? What is it that you need right now? And so asking these types of questions in a firmer way can help to keep your loved one from having to interpret or having to analyze the question too much. Oh, what do I need right now? Actually, all of my needs are met. Just being here with you is super, super helpful. Or no, what you're doing is supportive enough. And so you'll find your own, style here. And again, this is contingent upon whether you are being supportive to somebody during their preparation process, whether you are actually like in person in a psychedelic ceremony, maybe you're, the journeyer's emergency contact, which is a higher level of involvement. Or maybe you're just a part of this individual's like check-in system, in integration. And I think that question, that really powerful question, like, what do you need right now? What would help you feel more supported right now and into the future? Because if you say, is there anything I can do to support you? Sure, there are many things that you could probably do to support the individual. But whether they actually ask you for it or not is a whole different story. So from there, in my own, times that I've had to call in some friends with support, both psychedelically and non-psychedelically, I got to tell them, like, actually, like, this is feeling good. Can you check in with me every 2 weeks and maybe just start with text? And then we can find some time to chat. And by the way, if something comes up, a thought or something, can I maybe just like send you a voice note? And, no need for any type of response, I'll tell you, but maybe you can just receive that. Like I just need somebody to really like listen right now. Or, a deeper level, which is like, I have a lot of emotion to process, and I don't quite necessarily have a very safe space to express this fear or uncertainty or rage. Would it be okay if I have a really honest and real vent session with you where I got to express some of these things, but you know that it's not directed at you? And really what I'm looking for is just a safe person to kind of go through what I'm going through. Would you be available for that? So I'm just highlighting how powerful those types of conversations are. Forget about psychedelic experiences. I just don't think that we do this enough as humans supporting and caring for one another. And so I hope that if there's anything there for you, I invite you to take anything that you're hearing from me if it can improve your communication with your loved ones.